Hi, my name is Sean Dawson, and you're listening to Raising Men. I wanted to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the 250th anniversary of the founding of our nation, which is tomorrow. And I'm listening to a bunch of other podcasts and listening to people talk, and there's a lot of people that are kind of feeling unmoored or anxious about, is this really a time that we should be celebrating? Because things just seem difficult in a lot of ways. And I heard a great take on that, which was that this is a particularly important and exciting time to be an American. Not because things are going great. They're not going great. He said that it's the best time to be an American because the values that built this country, freedom, self-reliance, dignity, courage, respect for other points of view, those values seem like they're under threat. And that threat, paradoxically, is what makes it a real privilege to be alive now. Because when something is under threat, you finally get to see what it's worth. And you have to decide in a really physical, meaningful way, the extent to which you're going to fight for it or you're going to let it go. It brings everything into really, really stark relief. I sat with that a little bit and I thought, first of all, it really rings true to me. I have a real appreciation. I've traveled all over the world and I have a real appreciation for how special this country is. It really is one of the very few places on the planet where you have the kind of social mobility you have here, where you have the kinds of freedoms that you have here. And it's definitely true that we fall short of the ideals that our founders have set and that we purport to believe in, and that sometimes those ideals are misapplied, but I don't know of another place where that's embraced the way we have it here, or at least it's in the fabric of what we do, right? We're a nation that was founded by people that left their home because they wanted something better for themselves, for their children. That takes tremendous courage. And, I think there are a lot of ways in which we are not living up to that standard, but it's there. That standard is in our Constitution. It is in our blood. And I think that this, the 250th anniversary of Independence Day is our opportunity to really look in the mirror about how well we're living up to the ideals that we've set for ourselves. But here's the thing about values. You don't notice them really when everybody's in agreement about them. When the air is full of oxygen, nobody talks about oxygen, right? You only start to notice when it's not there, when the air is getting thin. It's for most of the last 50 or 60 years in this country, there was kind of a background assumption about what it meant to be a man, about masculinity. You worked, you provided, kept your word, you showed up, you didn't complain, you protected the people in your care, you told the truth, especially when it cost you. And were we always good at it? Or was everybody good at it? No. Everybody, I think, probably failed all the time, and it had some drawbacks. Men have always failed. But I think that standard was there. That standard, those values were the air. And now, for a whole bunch of reasons that we can and have spent lots of episodes on, that standard is getting contested. It's getting hijacked, I think, by people who are grifting on it. Frankly, I think people disagree about whether or not it's a good standard or whether there's a standard at all. And some people will tell you that the very idea of being a man is old-fashioned. It's a problem. Some people will tell you the answer is to go harder and louder and angrier. If you've been listening to the show, both of them, I think we've shown both of those viewpoints are wrong. Both of them are reactions, right? And neither of them is the thing. Neither of them is a healthy vision of masculinity. Here's the thing that podcast guest that I was listening to that I think that he got right about America and that I want to apply to this discussion about masculinity. The fact that it's contested is not the bad news. It's the opportunity we have to really forge a vision of masculinity that is healthy, that is compatible with the future and the past. Because when something is under pressure, when that air starts to get thin, you find out what parts of it are worth keeping. You pressure test it. You strip away the costume. You strip away the performance. You strip away the parts that were just inherited habit or that were just performative. And what's left, what ends up surviving, what survives that pressure, that is the real thing. And I think that the last time that we were under this kind of pressure was probably in World War II. And we emerged from that because of our American values and because of our cultural cohesiveness and all of that. We emerged from that so strong. And I think we have an opportunity to emerge from our current situation really strong as well. And that's where we are with how we raise men. The pressure is on, and it's part of crisis, and masculinity is part of kind of a bunch of other crises that we're facing in our current times as well. But that pressure means that we get to find out for our sons and for the boys in our lives and for ourselves what actually matters, not what we happen to be raised thinking, not what our fathers assumed, and not what our culture is trying to sell us, but what actually matters. What is the important aspects of masculinity? Fact is that it's harder to raise a man right now than it was 30 years ago. And I think anybody who's trying to tell you otherwise is probably selling something. I think that, I can think of three reasons off the top of my head why that's the case. First of all, the signal to noise ratio is terrible. Your son or the young man in your life has access to more voices in a single afternoon than your grandfather heard in a lifetime. More opinions, more ways of thinking about things, especially ones that are tantalizing and comforting, but not useful. And most of those voices aren't optimizing for him. They're optimizing not for his results. They're optimizing for his attention. There's a big difference, and it's the whole thing. Second, I think that the models are thinner or degraded. A boy used to grow up watching 3 or 4 men work close up, right? A father, an uncle, a coach, a neighbor. And, he saw them in all the aspects of their lives. He saw them angry. He saw them tired. He saw them get something wrong and what they did with that, whether they owned it or avoided responsibility. He saw them stay. A lot of boys grow up watching men perform on a screen, obviously, and in a lot of cases, people who aren't admirable, even on purpose, anti-heroes and that sort of thing. And performance, and that performance is happening, as part of entertainment intentionally, but it's also happening as this sort of entertainment that disguises itself as not entertainment, like social media and reality TV. And performance is not the same thing as actual presence. You can't learn how to be a man from a performance. It can help, but you can't. You can only learn masculinity through proximity, through trying stuff out and getting the feedback. And the third reason, and I think this one might be the deepest, is that I think a lot of fathers are uncertain, including me. And sometimes, I think we're the first generation of fathers raising sons in a world where we got handed is kind of fundamentally broken. That the script that we got handed and how to raise our sons or how we were raised is fundamentally broken in a way that I'm not sure has been the case for a long time, if at all, because of how quickly the world is changing, because of the nature of the experiments we're doing with our kids, essentially. And men aren't wired to say, I don't know, let's figure it out together. We're wired to fake it till you make it, to pretend you have the answers, to go silent or to go rigid. And both are mistakes. We need to get together. We need to figure that stuff out. So yeah, it's a lot harder to raise a boy into a man, I think. But That's also the gift. Difficulty is not the same as bad. Difficulty is the price of significance. So when something is easy, when there's a clear path and everybody agrees, your contribution doesn't matter, right? The thing is going to happen anyway. It's on rails. But when something is contested, when the path is unclear, when the air that I was talking about starts to get thin, now your decisions matter. Your presence matters. Your example matters. It gets battle tested. And it becomes really, really clear if you're found lacking. The parents and the mentors and the coaches and the teachers who are doing this work right now, being deliberate, being present, telling the truth, modeling restraint, modeling courage, modeling repair, modeling vulnerability. Those parents, those people are not just raising their own sons. They are holding the line for a generation. Think about that. You, the person listening to this in your car, in your truck, at the gym, on a walk, when you choose to be a different kind of presence in your son's life today than the average voice that he sees squawking at him on social media or YouTube, when you choose to do that, you're doing one of the most important jobs available in this country right now. You are establishing the new vision of masculinity. I mean that. 250 years ago, a small number of people decided the kind of country we were going to be. It wasn't obvious. It seems like it was now, but it wasn't obvious then. Most of them weren't famous. Most of them weren't rich. Most of them didn't come from some kind of aristocracy. Most of them were pretty much just guys who decided that in their corner of the world, some things were worth standing for, what they stood for, imperfectly. Blind spots included, all of that, failures we're still working through. That has shaped every single life, not only on this continent, but in the entire world. That imperfection, that failure, those blind spots, they are not the weakness of America. They are the strength of America. The fact that we can look at those things and reckon with them and improve. That is what got us to where we are. And you don't have to put your life on the line now, right? You don't have to sign a declaration. That is the favor that those people did for us. You just have to be the parent that shows up on Tuesday, right? And then again on Wednesday, and again on Thursday, and again on Friday. Tries to stay calm and stay regulated and create the castle walls and build that courtyard. And you keep showing up when it's inconvenient or when you don't feel like it, particularly when the boy you're raising is being a freaking nightmare. And you show up again and again and again, and you do it on purpose. Because that, showing up, sticking around, not flinching, telling the truth, apologizing when you blew it, that's the thing. That's masculinity. That's the whole curriculum. And there isn't another one. I often think about what that modern view of masculinity is. And I think that there's a lot of voices out there that are trying to flesh it out. But if I had to pick a couple of things that I think travel across every era, the things that our great-grandfathers would recognize and that our great-grandsons will also recognize. There are four that I think I would pick. First one is tell the truth, especially when it costs you something, especially when you're tempted not to, especially to yourself. I think a boy can tell from when he's about 4 years old whether the men around him are honest. He can't articulate it. He can't call it out. But he knows if you lie to him about small things, about why you're tired, or why you're upset, or why you canceled on going to his basketball game, he learns that words don't mean what they say. And he learns that it's okay to be dishonest. By the way, to himself as well as to other people. I think, so tell him the truth. Tell him it gently, tell him it age appropriately. And then he'll learn that the world is understandable. I think, I know some people that are dishonest, and they're dishonest in a way where they don't actually lie. Like the words that they say aren't untrue, but the sense that they're conveying the message that the remote party is getting, or that the person they're talking to, that's not an accurate reflection of reality. So they lie by omission, or they lie by implication, and they think they're getting away with something. And I've known several people like this, and their lives are ruined. And they set on that line, that road to ruin, the instant they decided that it was a good idea to get that short-term benefit, to lie. And I think it's really important that our sons see And we don't do that because we want them to be honest people. We want them. And by the way, I mean, it keeps them out of ruin by telling the whole truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth. You don't have to keep a bunch of different stories straight in your head. You don't come across as somewhat dishonest. And people who think they're getting away with something don't understand that there's something that other people recognize in them, that we are tuned to recognize dishonesty in people. Even if we can't really label it, and even if we can't name, this is where you lied, we know that on the whole, this person's dishonest. And if someone comes across as dishonest, they sort of get pushed to the edge of the herd in our culture. Maybe appropriately. The second is related, and that is keep your word. Don't make promises you can't keep, or try not to. And if you fail to keep a promise, own up to it. Third thing I'll mention is you need to stay. Whatever's happened, once you've made that commitment related to keeping your word, there are lots of things that want to drive you out of the room. Anger, failure, embarrassment, conflict, boredom, grief. If you run away from all that stuff, you're being a boy, right? The biggest difference between boys who grow into solid men and ones who don't, in my experience, which is limited, is whether the men around them stayed when it got hard. And the fourth is repair. When you screw up, and you're going to screw up, I screw up all the time. We all screw up. I try to tell the stories of ways I screw up on this show to kind of, I don't know, exercise my demons and kind of show that it's not the end of the world. So the question isn't whether you're going to mess up in front of your son. You're going to. The question is, what do you do about it? And I feel this tremendous shame, actually, when there are aspects of, I'll lash out at one of my kids, or I just get frustrated, or that sort of thing, and I won't handle it well. And I get this tremendous sense of shame, like I've ruined my kids, and then I'm not living up to the values that I have, and I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing that I feel that way. But, the important thing is that motivates you to fix it, to make it right, as opposed to, justify your behavior, be defensive. So tell the truth, keep your word, stick around, and repair. Those are the four. Those are the four things that I think they were the four in 1776, 250 years ago. And I think they're going to be the four in 2276. And I think every one of those things is actually a lot harder to model in this environment than when I was a kid. And like I said, that's why doing it now a lot more than doing it even 10 or 20 years ago. So that's it for this episode of Raising Men. If something here connected with you, share it with another parent who might need it, a brother, a sister, a spouse, a guy or gal at work. This is how this work spreads. And engage with me. We're all the links are in the show notes to all of our socials, our website, our email address. I'd love to hear from you guys. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember that you are a great parent.